Yo, what is up guys? It is Bumfris, back with another episode of Entitled Parents. Today's episode is gonna be a banger, and I know you're gonna love this one. Continuing on with this experiment of the YouTube algorithm, can I please make sure every single person watching this video hits the like button down below? It helps me understand the YouTube algorithm more than you know, and helps me deliver better content to you guys every single day. Now sit back, relax, and get annoyed at some entitled parents. So today, I, 29-year-old female, am 13 years in remission from cancer. I had a very aggressive type with less than 20% chance of survival for the first 5 years, and chance of the specific type coming back after 5 years was reduced to 0. But that's not the story I'm here to share, it's just relevant information. As I was 16, I qualified for Make-A-Wish. I'd play around with a bunch of potential ideas, destination vacations, meeting my favorite band, getting electronics, etc. Once the idea of traveling somewhere warm came up, my mum was convinced that was what was happening with my wish. The discussion of Barbados came up, so that is what she set her mind to. However, I was still on the fence, and after discussing it with my correspondent at Make-A-Wish, I wanted to meet my favorite band. We wouldn't have been able to go to the Caribbean for the trip simply because of the costs, but we could have still gone somewhere warm and out of the country. We live in northern Canada where there's -40°C winters. There were talks of Florida, California, or even Hawaii as a destination to meet them at. I wrote a letter directed to said band, explaining how listening to them had helped me through treatment, and one song in particular that the youngest wrote. And my correspondent had mailed it out to their managers, and they were going to begin preparations for the band to get time scheduled for the wish. When I told my mum what I wanted and the plan to meet the band, she went nuts. She went off about how she deserved this trip as much as I do because she was there for me the entire time, and that if I wanted to do anything besides going to Barbados, I could find another adult to supervise the trip because neither her or my stepdad would be joining me since it wasn't what she wanted. She then told me to pack my bags and that I'd be staying at my dad's place until I came to my senses and told Make-A-Wish that we were going to Barbados. I spent over a month at my dad's, and the correspondent tried to convince me to go through with what I really wanted several times during this period before I caved and let my mum have what she wanted. Now, my parents did make a compromise with me at the time and told me that they'd drive me to their concert in Toronto if I had paid for the entire trip. Foolish me thought that this was a great idea as I get to see the band in concert and I make my parents happy in the end. It cost a lot and my parents complained the whole time, but at least I'd seen them in concert. On the occasional time where the conversation of the trip to Barbados comes up, my mum likes to paint herself as the victim after all these years, saying, "Could you imagine if you'd gone through with it and we'd missed out on going to Barbados? You would have gone with person's mum instead and left us behind. I would have never forgiven you if you'd done that." To this day, I am still a huge fan of that band. They were on a hiatus for a while, but came back, and this whole situation really sticks in my mind, especially when I see them performing on shows and on their 2 tours that they've done post-hiatus. Yes, I saw them in concert, and it was a great time, but I could have physically met them and gone to a concert through Make-A-Wish while traveling to another country without having to pay out of pocket for the experience. All because my mum felt entitled to making my wish about her rather than the actual recipient of it. I understand that she didn't care to meet the band herself, but there could have been many opportunities available aside from doing just that. I nearly died. It shouldn't have been a question of doing whatever I wanted for my wish, especially with the extremely high chance of the cancer coming back. Many people have asked if I'm still in contact with her, and there's too many to answer individually, but yeah, we do still have a relationship. There have been other things that her and my stepdad have done since this major one, but nothing amounted to what she did for that trip. Part of the reason I keep contact is that so my son can have a relationship with them, but I limit personal conversations with them. And for those asking, the band was the Jonas Brothers. The youngest of the 3, Nick, has type 1 diabetes, and he wrote a song called A Little Bit Longer, which is about his struggles when he was diagnosed between 12 and 14. It was released a month before I was diagnosed with cancer, and it resonated with me during difficult days. You know, I read a lot of entitled parent stories, not just the ones you guys see on this YouTube channel, but I spend quite a bit of time looking at stories and trying to pick the best ones out before I actually post them. And this mother has to be one of the most selfish entitled entitled parents that I have come across in the entire subreddit. I mean, Make-A-Wish is an organization that I have a lot of respect for. They make some really incredible things happen for some children that are in some really unfortunate situations, and last time I checked, Make-A-Wish wasn't for the parents of the sick children. I must admit, I'm a little bit surprised the OP still has contact with the mother, because this entitled mum sounds like someone I wouldn't want to be associated with in any way. And just a side question I would like to ask you guys because I'm curious, if you could have one wish similar to that of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, tell me in the comments below what it would be and I'll pin my favorite one and reply to each and every one of you. More years ago than I care to remember, I got my first job. I worked for the catering department of the council-run sports company. I think it was Sporty Town Catering Limited. We had two sites, a cafe and a swimming pool and gym, and a bar in a golf club. Now, it's important to note that while the cafes in theory had a functional kitchen, the reality was that it was a pot room and cold storage with an oven. We ordered all our food from vendors and the bar, so everything was pre-packed and labeled. Now, every so often, the gym would put on a swimming gala, and as you would expect, the cafe would be slammed. This is a story about one of those days. Our line is stretching around the corner and my co-workers and I are working flat out when the guy running the till asks me about what's gluten-free. Now, we weren't required to have an allergen book because everything had the allergens listed on them, but being celiac, I knew what was safe to eat. I started walking the mother through her options and she says that her daughter is a swimmer and she's not going to keep her energy up by eating rice cakes. I apologize and explain that there's nothing that I can do today, but I can talk to our sister site and get a gluten-free sandwich in for tomorrow if they're there for both days. In the meantime, there's a Tesco and a Co-op down the road, which is still not a great selection, but at least her daughter will be able to eat something decent. I also let her know that if they come to a gala again, they can phone this number and pre-order gluten-free. The mother seemed placated by this and wanders off to said shops. She comes back about 15 minutes later with a gluten-free microwave pasta pot and asks if we can heat it up. I explain that I'm really sorry, but we don't have a microwave. I can try putting it in our oven, but I can't guarantee that it would still be edible. She starts screaming that it's disgusting that we don't cater for allergies in any way. I reply that I'm sorry that she feels this is the case, but as I explained to her earlier, we do have ways to cater for allergies with advance notice. She screams at me, "That doesn't help my daughter right now, does it?" I am really holding my tongue here. At this point, I've been a celiac for about 6 years. If I was going somewhere new, I'd scope it out as much as I can and then bring food with me for just in case. That's how it works with allergies or intolerances. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Never assume that there'll be food that you can eat. I reiterate that the best I can do is pop the pot in the oven. She storms off and comes back with the building duty manager. He asks why we're refusing to microwave the pot. I tell him that we don't have a microwave and that the only way we have to heat this thing up is the oven. He comes into the back of the kitchen, confirms there is no microwave, and then asks why I didn't offer to use the one in the staff room. I say to him, "We have a staff break room?" And he says, "Yes." Wait, where do you take your breaks? I say to him that if we get a break, we take it in the kitchen because we don't get a whole one and we'll have to jump back on to help. He turns to the mother, apologizes, and then takes the pot to heat it for her. She stares daggers at me and I'm like, "You do you," and jump back into helping with the queue. You know, I find it hilarious when entitled parents act like it's everybody else's fault that they're a crappy parent, especially in a situation like this when they know that their child doesn't eat gluten and that they know there's a possibility that not everybody's going to be able to cater for that type of food, but then proceed to not bring anything for said child in case they don't get catered for. I guess the easiest way to go about life is to just expect everything from everybody else and never take any responsibility for yourself or your children. I think that's basically the definition of an entitled parent. So I just want to say before this begins that my brother and I aren't 100% blood related. We share the same mother yet different fathers. Another thing is that my brother is black and I am white. This comes in later on. 2 years ago on Mother's Day, my father, my brother and I agreed to go to Crown, which is a hotel in Perth. It has loads of things in it, like a casino, many restaurants, a gym, pool, and obviously hotel rooms. We decided to head into one of the restaurants there and have a nice dinner. All went well and we ordered our meals, ate them, ordered dessert, and ate it as well. It was a very lovely and busy day, but then I needed to head to the bathroom. My brother said he needed to go as well, so we walked to them together. Went inside, did our business, and walked out. As we were both chatting, walking away, heading to our family, we hear a woman yell out a slur. We obviously looked around looking for the person who did it, and eventually we saw a middle-aged Karen haircut woman storming towards us with her toddler and husband walking behind her. My brother whispered to me, "Oh crap." I'll say this now, he's a few years older than me, so at the time I was 12 and he was 16, and she says to us, "What are you doing with that boy? He is my brother. Please leave us alone and have a nice Mother's Day." My brother grabbed my hand and started walking away with me in tow. The entitled mum then shrieks, "Don't you leave," and grabbing my brother on the shoulder. She goes on to say, "People like you make up lies all the time." I could see my brother getting agitated and I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what. Finally, her husband intervenes and says, "Honey, let's leave. They're just children." She says fine and goes on to say, "But let me tell you one thing, you slur. You don't belong in an expensive place like this." And with that, she turned around and stormed off. For the rest of the day, my brother was quiet. He only really spoke up and laughed when we played FIFA. He was fine the next day though, but I did feel really bad about it. You know, I would like to think that this type of behavior isn't something that this person experiences all the time and that it was an isolated incident for them, but the reality is, I don't know what it's like to be targeted in this way, and as much as you can sympathize or empathize with another person, you can never quite put yourself in their shoes unless you've experienced something. The one thing that I can say about this situation though with absolute certainty is that this entitled mother is a terrible person and is imparting some of the worst values that you can possibly impart on her children. Let's start with some backstory. My dad has always subscribed to the authoritarian style of parenting. Every chore needed to be done perfectly, grades needed to be perfect, etc. He also had an awful temper and was a bit of a control freak. I found out when I was older that he installed cameras on my windows, a keylogger on my computer, and would regularly read my diary. Anyway, my parents divorced when I was 16 and I moved in with my mum about 5 minutes away. She worked nights as a nurse and trusted me to be home alone. I was a nerdy kid and it's not like there was too much to worry about except staying up too late and watching anime. When I was 18, she came home one morning and found footprints in the snow all around the house. I'd had a stalker before who thought we'd left the country and we both freaked out. She called my dad to let him know because this guy had been threatening my family for ruining our marriage as he thought we were married even though I barely knew him. And my dad admitted to seeing a light on late at night and looking through all her windows. My mum lost it on him. Cut to now, 10 years later, my mum and siblings are all no contact with him for many reasons. I was no contact for a while, but everyone deserves a second chance. I'm having dinner with him and his wife, and he laughs about the story, saying that he didn't stop looking in her windows, he just got better at covering his tracks. What finally made him stop was the fact that I would walk around the house in underwear while my mum was at work, just because it was hot in the summer and I was more comfortable. The only window without blinds was in the kitchen, and you'd have to break into the backyard through the fence because the lock was flimsy and you'd have to stand on the hot tub cover to see it. Well, it only took one time and he never spied on us or my mum again. Today's episode of Entitled Parents has had some absolute doozies. Like when I say that, I mean there has been some seriously messed up behavior in just about every single one of these stories. There's a line between being an entitled parent who just wants their kids to have everything and an entitled parent who downright commits criminal behavior and thinks that it's funny. I'd be very surprised if there was a single person in the comments who could justify or support this type of behavior. And that is that for today's episode of Entitled Parents. If you did enjoy, don't forget to hit the like button down below. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe. If you've got the time, it would mean the world to me if you would watch one of the videos that are on your screen right now. They've been hand selected for you and I can guarantee it will give you some entertainment and a laugh. Otherwise though, thank you again for watching. I hope you're all having a fantastic day and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another video. Bye.